The penultimate phase of the Burning Crusade Classic has just hit the PTR recently. This will be the equivalent patch to 2.3 of the original game, but for us it will mainly just be badge gear changes as well as the addition of a new 10-man raid, Zul'Aman. Based on previous durations of PTR content for Classic, I'd expect the raid to drop in about 4 to 6 weeks or so from the date of this video, meaning either phase 3 is going to be under 3 months total in duration, way shorter than I would have expected it to be, or the Sunwell is going to be a whole lot longer. Either way, it's one step closer to Wrath of the Lich King if you have been looking forward to that. Back in patch 2.3 originally, it was enormous, with so many class changes. Old world content got considerably nerfed. The Defias Pillagers, which were statistically the most deadly mob in vanilla by the way, were finally hit with nerfs, as were the rate at which Curse and Medicine Men spammed their heals. Classes without an interrupt will know the pain of doing that quest back in vanilla. Also at this point in time, WoW's sub count in the OG version was very much on the up and up, so it made sense to keep making the older content that little bit easier to ensure that newer players, especially those who would be solo, will be able to make their way through and up to the current expansion. Nowadays we are a bit more of a patch by patch game where people ebb and flow between different MMOs. Anyways, so then, what is new? What can you expect, and is there anything worth preparing in advance for the new patch? The first thing I would mention about this patch is if you've been considering rolling an alt, coming back to the game, or even just trying to gear up on the main a little bit more, this is the patch to do it in. In phase 4 there will be a massive amount of puggable content which will give rewards that are in many cases much better than anything you can find from 25-man raiding. If you don't have the time to commit to a full raid schedule, the 10-man content should see a big jump in popularity, and you could be gearing a character up ready for Wrath the Lich King, or just trying to play something else for a little bit. Let's start off with a new 10-man raid then, Zul'Aman, located in possibly the most inconvenient place Blizzard could think of, the Ghostlands. It's your typical mid-expansion trolls start to try and raise a god or something instance. For real though, trolls and mid-expansion content where they just sort of fail at doing something is tradition in WoW. We had ZG in Classic, we have ZA in TBC, Wrath of the Lich King they were on cooldown unless we include Drak'Tharon Keep in there, Kata had ZG and ZA, Mop had Mogashin Vaults and the Isle of Thunder, and you know what, I digress, you get the idea. The Amani Warbear will be from the timed event in the instance. Think of how the Strat Undead event worked, but sort of larger scale, and each boss you defeat in the instance will extend your timer a little bit more, and from the PTR testing it seems very lenient to say the least, though they do have phase 6 gear on the PTR. There are 4 tiers of rewards total depending on how fast you complete the raid. The first 3 are all randomizer loot, and tier 4 always drops the bear. Zul'Jin himself also has a simple quest hand-in item which ends up rewarding 10 badges of justice and some gold. It's non-repeatable. There is a decent amount of notable gear from Zul'Aman as well. Mainly the trinkets, as far as I know, are pretty much upgrades for all DPS classes, those being Hexshrunk and Head from Hexalorb Malakras, as well as Berserker's Call from Zul'Jin. So it's definitely worth checking up on Atlas Loot or Basilis to see what's been made available. Other than that, it's just a 10-man raid, should be puggable, no problem once players get used to it. There are also going to be quite a few changes to go over for badges of justice as well as the gear that you are able to get from them. The basic recommendation at this point in time though would be do not spend any badges on pretty much anything until phase 4 has released. Chances are there will be better options for you to use them on when it is out. The badge vendor in Shatrath now directly sells Primal Nevers for 10 badges and Nether Vortex for 15. Both of these are now also tradable and can be put unbought on the auction house. This makes getting those profession items that need these much easier. I would expect prices of both of these to go down pretty fast after the patch drops, since the supply from players being able to buy them with excess badges will be greater than what people need them for. I'd try and sell off any you have excess at the moment as part of leg armors or item crafts from SSC TK while you have the opportunity to do so. Making things more accessible will always drive the prices down. Bosses in both Zul'Aman and Karazhan will also start to drop badges of justice. Kara will still be on a 7-day lockout and the achievement is gone. It went some time ago actually, though you will either need somebody with the key to open the front door or a rogue with high enough lockpicking skill. Zul'Aman, however, is on a 3-day lockout. This on top of the heroic dungeon content as well as the daily heroic means there are suddenly more ways than ever to get items and start getting upgrades. Be Speaking of which, new badge gear for pretty much every single class spec combo in the entire game, many of which have the new stats like ignoring armor or haste. Also, there is some PvP gear here, notably the cloaks and the Battlemaster trinkets. This is where your upgrades will come from most consistently during Phase 4, especially as a more casual player. It's this vendor on top of all the new sources of badges and Zul'Aman that make Phase 4 the time to come back if you've been thinking about playing the game patch. There are also one or two notable profession item changes in the game as well. The Mace Dragonmore from blacksmithing is now one-handed, meaning they can be dual-wielded, and the nethers to make them can be bought, so there'll be a very strong gearing option. The Greater Drums of Battle recipe will be made available, meaning they'll now have an extended cast range, so you don't have to worry about stacking up, and druids can use them in Shapeshift. Very nice. The Executioner enchant will start dropping in Zul'Aman, which is an 840 armor pen proc. As far as I know, more of a PvP thing, but still something to think about when the patch is out. And that is pretty much Phase 4. Yeah, that's it. You know, a while ago, I thought they were going to release Seasonal Mastery around this kind of point in time where we are now, because Phase 3 has been going for a little bit. A lot of people have cleared it and got their fun out of it. The content isn't as hard as SSE or TK was. And then we have Phase 4 coming out with Zul'Aman. It's another bit of a freebie of a raid. The gear's very nice, don't get me wrong, but there's not really much to it apart from that. It also seemed like a pretty good period of time after Classic had finished to say, hey, want to try vanilla again whilst there isn't a massive amount happening in TBC? Instead, they ended up doing some, well, a long time ago as well. In fact, they just got their troll raid in ZG not so long ago. This means the only patch for TBC that is left will be the Sunwell, which should be an interesting tier to see how it plays out. How long will it take after the Isle of Quel'Danas is open for the raid to be made available? I've tried to look for this in the past and there isn't much info to go on. Are Blizzard going to stagger the boss releases as they did back in old TBC, or just release the entire thing at once? I personally think they'll release the entire thing at once. I don't know why they'd stagger them again. Maybe they will for the sake of that's how it was back then. Also, the Sunwell contains one boss in particular that players famously put on a pedestal as one of the most difficult encounters that's ever been in the game for years, that being Muru. I think it'll go exactly as we expect it to. Top guilds will make it look like a joke, others will struggle a little bit. I mean, back during Phase 3, there was about a 50-50 split between guilds that hadn't cleared pre-nerf Ash and KT and those that had. On top of that, there isn't a huge amount outside the Isle of Quel'Danas or the new raid to expect in Phase 5 either. But that's what you get when the majority of the content, quality of life changes and class balancing are all in the last patch for an MMO, I suppose. Either way, Phase 4 coming soon at TM, kill some trolls, get a bear, catch up gear, and more ways to get badges. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening in, and I shall see you all in the next one very soon.